It was just too juicy of a target for us not to go hit. The whole village erupts on us, machine gun fire everywhere. There's a lot of luck in combat. Your luck will run out. AK-47 round went through my arm. I have grenade shrapnel all on my right side. They just put $50 million helicopters in the middle of bad guy country. I'm here today because of what those guys did. 9/11 happened and everything changed. I went off to training for a little bit over a year to get my Green Beret. I couldn't wait to actually get to do my job on the field of battle. I did not join the military to guard a gate. I joined to go to war. I was 4 deployments in before I went to the Delta Force because I don't think people really understand how close the relationship Delta and SAS have. I started training SWAT teams and got into police training. So I started First Responder Coffee Company. 6 months later, I started First Responder Cigar Company. Last year, we raised over $20,000. It gives me a reason to wake up and work hard again.
Right, okay, this week on the Debrief then, I have joining me from the United States of America, Brent Tucker. How are you, Brent? You all right, mate?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Listen, the way this is going to work today, I'm going to try and get into you a little bit, find out who you are, where you're from, all that sort of stuff, and then we'll talk your military career and get the nuts and guts and all that sort of stuff out of it, and then we'll have a bit of a laugh and a joke and a smoke. You're already having a smoke over there, aren't you?
That's right. I'm already one step ahead of you.
You're already on the cigar, mate. So listen, mate. Yeah. So where are you from? What's your story? What was your childhood like? Where were you from?
So I'm from a small town in Florida. I know everyone, if regardless in the world, whenever someone thinks of Florida, they think of Miami or Disney World. But if anyone's actually been to Florida, as soon as you get away from those big towns, you're out in the middle of cow country. There's still a lot of horses and cattle and citrus groves in Florida. So I grew up in a small town. My family were cattlemen and have been for generations. So I'm actually a 9th generation Floridian. We've been here in Florida for a long time. So that's my background. You're really
okay.
Small
So
town.
happy family times. Mum, dad, okay. Everybody getting on with everybody.
Happy is a relative term. I grew up with the best mom in the world, and of course, looking back, what I would call the best dad in the world. But I grew up under a hard nosed dad.
Okay.
My dad worked 60 hours a week, 65 hours a week. He didn't have time all the time for the kids because he was working. He was providing.
But I mean, cattle farming and all that sort of stuff. That's round the clock, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Cows don't feed themselves, do they? Do you know what I mean?
That's right. And you live in fear that dad was going to come home to a bad report from mom, and you're going to pay the price.
And that was you. You'd feel that pain.
That's right. So, so in a weird way, and it's funny because as people get older, my dad's even apologized, to me for how hard he was on me growing up. And I look at him and said, Dad, I wouldn't have it any other way. That made me the man that
I'm sure it has been
That's
part and parcel with turning you into, what you've become and all that sort of stuff. So what was you like at school? You any good at school? Clever?
I was clever. I had almost too clever. um, because in a weird way, it didn't force mentally. I never had to work real hard. I was always smart at school. I never had to really study that hard. School was became very easy to me.
Okay.
On the opposite side of that, now sports did come easy to me as well. I was good at everything I ever did. I hate to say that because it doesn't sound very humble, but that's the
so as you
truth of
Americans
it.
will say, you were the jock of the school. You were a jock.
Well, here's here's the caveat to that. I was small, and
Oh, okay.
so at some point, everyone's getting bigger, and I wasn't. And even though I didn't have to work very hard at school because it came naturally to me, and so did sports, at the end of the day, size matters, in sports. And so I had to
Yeah,
work really, really, really hard to be just as good as at guys that were bigger than me, because of my size, and whether that was football, baseball, basketball.
yeah.
Um, but I
You had to
still
put a shift in.
that oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh, and now that I have a 9-year-old son, I'm having to tell him, you know, and who's a little bit undersized. Uh, it is a little bit odd to be a 9-year-old myself and having no one tell me to do it, and going out in the yard and just doing wind sprints because I want
yeah,
to get better, throwing a baseball in the air and hitting it just because I want to get better. I was always very driven competitively, and
yeah.
that happened at an early age.
I think you can be born with that sort of thing, can't you? I mean, it's not something you need to learn. It's something that's there, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
That's true. People want to ask me all the time. I don't want to get ahead of it, but what what makes a person driven? What leadership? Here's a good example. How do we make good leaders? And I don't know that you can make a good leader. I think you can make a leader better, but you're either born with it or you're not. People don't want to
Yeah, you're
hear
right. I
that,
do. Yeah,
but
I
that's the
get that.
truth of it.
I get that. So you finished school and all that sort of stuff. Were you always destined to go in the army? What were you going to do? What is that? Was that your plan to join
Not,
the army?
no, not at all. Um, I was actually one of the few kids in my small town that enjoyed living in my small town. Everyone else wanted to get out of the small town, and the 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, that's what changed everything. Now, we were always a very pro military family, but going into the military just didn't seem to be in my future. Of
Okay.
course, 9/11 happened, and everything changed.
So your whole mindset now goes, I'm joining the army. I'm not having this. You're on my soil. You're attacking me. So you're obviously a very proud person.
Absolutely. I what really I think the catalyst for me was because, like anything else, I mean, of course, it's easy to say, yeah, that happened, and I joined, and there's a short answer. But with anything like that, you go back and forth having to make this decision, and it's a massive decision when it's a life altering decision like that. At the end of the day, I said to myself, I don't want to be an old man, look back at my life and think, when my country got attacked, what did I do about it? And I just didn't want to live a life of regrets. So I
Yeah.
I knew that if I joined, I wouldn't regret it, and I knew if I didn't join, I would regret it at least at one point in my life. So I didn't want to take that chance.
And I get that because, I mean, at this age now, looking back, and I'm 55 now, I get so many people come up to me and go, I wish I'd joined, or I wish I'd done Special Forces selection, or whatever it happens to be. Do you know what I mean? But too
Yeah,
late now. It's
I,
too late.
I know,
You
and
didn't.
I know, and I tell people all the time, you should absolutely try. And I don't even care if you make it or not. I don't, but you should at least try, and
Yeah,
never have
because
to live a
you had
life
that
of
intent.
what if. That's
Yeah,
right.
having that intent will at least, if you fail, at least you'll know, well, I did my bit, I did my best.
Right.
I didn't make the grade, but at least I did something. If you don't do anything, you're just going to go, no, I mugged it
But
off, and I've mugged myself off.
of course, here's the irony of it. Did anyone have to talk you into going to selection? No one
No,
had to talk me into
no.
going to selection. So
Yeah.
just by the mere fact someone's asking me if I should go to selection, I hate to say it, you're probably not the guy.
You're not the
if you have to
one.
if you have to be talked into going to a special, or
Yeah.
coddled into
No, you're right. And it's,
being told to
it's a
go.
massively important thing, and I've had the conversation with a guy at Operator this afternoon. On his medals, it says SAS in brackets volunteer. That volunteer is probably one of the most important words within that regiment. Do you know what I mean?
Probably right behind Who Dares Wins.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right, yeah.
Probably.
So, yeah,
I, I'm
massively
I'm
important.
I'm not pandering to you. I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite sayings in
Yeah, yeah.
all of special operations, and I've said it many many times, and I love that motto, and I love that's what that they live by.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you you joined the regular army. Who did you join? What did you join when you joined up?
I joined air defense, so
Okay.
air like We call them Stinger missiles. You may know what a Stinger missile is. It's a
Yeah,
shoulder fired,
shoulder held thing up
yeah,
it
air
goes.
defense.
Yeah,
Um, that although a great job, and someone's got to do it. When you join to fight the war on terror, it's not exactly a job against them. That the Taliban isn't
well,
exactly
they
flying
didn't they
around in
didn't really have any
helicopters.
planes, did they? Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. But I didn't know enough.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just literally showed up and said, "Hey, where does my country need me?" And they're like, "Your
Okay.
country needs you in air defense." I said, "Awesome. Then I'll be the best air defender I can be."
No, that's the right attitude, just the wrong job, isn't it? So you must have sort of like you must
But
have suddenly realised, hang on a minute, the Taliban are shy of a few planes around here.
yeah, at some point, I did get my feet on the ground and get settled in and realized
Yeah.
I may need a change on this.
So
And
did you
I'll
know about special forces? Was it something you knew about? Did you know about Delta Force and what they did and all that sort of stuff?
well, the only thing I knew about Delta Force at that time, it was a movie in the 1980s by Chuck Norris. I mean, that was the most of my Delta Force
Who
knowledge at
needs
that
Delta
time.
Force if you got Chuck?
and and to be honest with you, about the most I knew about the Green Berets was it was a John Wayne movie, back in the 70s. I
Yeah,
did not know much about the Army. It wasn't until I got to my unit after my initial training, and some of the air defenders had gotten back from Afghanistan on their very first trip,
yeah,
and I was like, how was war? I mean, you know, not naively, I joined to go to war. It's what
yeah.
I wanted to do. They attacked us, and I wanted to
Attack
do
back.
something,
Yeah.
tangible against them. I wanted to go to war, and they're like, Brent, we're air defenders. We don't really have a job. So when you don't have a job, you end up guarding gates and opening gates for people and doing tower guard duties. She's like, that's what we did, and and to be honest with you, that kind of broke my heart because like I did not join the military to guard a gate. Like
Yeah. No, no, no. I
my
totally
country
get
was
that. And
attacked.
I see the guys in the green zone. Do you know what I mean? I see your guys in
Mm.
the green zone who were doing just that, who were just, they'd be there for 6 or 7 months and you'd see the same face every day. Do you know what I mean?
And someone's got to do it. And don't for a
Yeah.
second think that I'm talking down on anyone who didn't serve in a high capacity.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that wasn't for me,
Wasn't for
and
you. No, I totally
I
get that.
wasn't
I totally
going
get
to
that.
be happy doing that job.
Yeah.
And so I asked them, I was like, well, who was doing things? Who was getting after it? And they're like, and I don't even know if these stories are true. When people get back from deployments, the stories get bigger and bigger. But like they're like, oh man, these special forces guys, these Green Berets, they'd come in from the wire, blood all over their vehicles and big beards, and we'd be like, ID sergeant, and be like, F your ID, just open the gate. And I was like, what would you do? They're like, what do you think? We just opened the gate. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And deep down, I was like, those guys kind of sound like jerks. Try to say it in a nice way.
Yeah.
And but I kind of want to be one of those jerks. Like I kind of like it for whatever reason. And it also made me want to, see if I was good enough to be those guys. And so
Yeah.
that's really what that first story really is what got me thinking, am I good enough to to be those guys? And that's what got the ball rolling.
So you go for Green Berets first, right?
Hmm.
And is there a selection process to become a Green Beret?
Yep. So there's a selection process for that. It's about a month long. It's held
Okay.
in North Carolina. Um, a lot of land navigation. There's some team events. A lot of like mind games and riddles
Yeah.
and puzzles you have to solve. Um, Log PT, rifle PT. It wasn't fun by any means.
No.
But I was lucky enough to make it my first time. And then off to the end of the Q, what we call the Q course, which is short for the qualification course. Um, which is one of the longest MOSs or schools for any special operations.
Okay.
I was a. Each team has um, different specialties. You're either a weapons sergeant, an engineer sergeant, a commo sergeant, or a medical sergeant.
Okay.
I got commo sergeant, and I went off to training for a little bit over a year
Wow.
total to get my Green Beret. So it's a very long and intensive course,
Yeah.
both tactically intensive, technically intensive with communications and doing satellite communications and radio and HF
Yeah.
data and
Antenna
voice.
propagation and all that sort of stuff. It's a pain, isn't it?
Absolutely. Antenna
Yeah.
theory, radio wave propagation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then you go into your unconventional warfare training. And then you go to language training because every Green Beret has to know a second language.
Yeah.
And then you go into your SEER training for your survival and your escape and evasion
Yeah.
training. And eventually you finally get your Green Beret. And it's great because you come out as a Green Beret knowing your job. I mean, you are qualified to work in the special operations area without a doubt.
Okay.
But I tell you,
So did you?
a little bit of the ironic part is everyone in that time in 2002, 2003 is in a hurry to graduate because we think we're going to miss the war. Like this course is so long. We've got to get out of this course or we're going to miss the war.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Yeah. You're gonna be.
little did we know that generation was going to see more war than any generation of special operations, before them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah. It was
not
going
going
to
to
be
be a problem
continual
for us.
for a long time. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your first deployment was that with the Green Berets?
hmm
To where did you go?
Um, we went to Afghanistan. I do
Okay.
remember we were supposed to be uh, basically on the invasion part of Iraq, and we got shifted over to Afghanistan. And I remember everybody being very upset about that.
Yeah.
they were they were pissed. Everyone wanted to go to Iraq, and the team that I got assigned to had just gotten back from Afghanistan, so they were very excited about going to another country to
Yeah.
fight. When they got told you're going back to Afghanistan, they were less than thrilled about it. But I didn't care. I didn't care where I fought. I just to be blunt about it, I just wanted to kill someone somewhere still for 9/11, and I didn't care if it was Iraq or Afghanistan.
Right. So yeah,
So
that's it. That's you're wielding that sword, mate, and you're swinging
that's
it
right.
above
Yep.
your head.
And after so long of training, you just can't. It's been a long time. I signed up in 2001. It's been 2 years, and I haven't done anything, other than train for my country. So I couldn't wait to actually get to do my job,
Yeah.
for real on the field of battle. So I was looking at my chops. I couldn't. I didn't care where I went.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you got out the traps and went down the range?
You better
Do you
believe
remember
it.
the?
Oh,
Yeah. Come on. Let's
you
have the first time the first time you got to land that sword.
it was it was. I want to say it. It was very misleading, and and you'll know what I'm talking about in a second because it was a great mission. It was a great mission, and you think all missions are like this, and it's just not the truth. But my first mission was a daytime raid. It was a two ODA, two special forces teams together. Um, it was a high value target, and it came together really quick. We basically just got pulled out of our planning room there in Kandahar and said, "Hey, the boss wants to see you. We got a mission, and get all your stuff right now." And immediately, I'm already thinking, "This is awesome. This is exactly what I signed up for." Getting
Yeah.
grabbed, big mission. The commander wants to see you, and we plan a mission real quick. And it was a high value target that was basically having a barbecue. He was having a bad guy barbecue, and he was having all his bad guy friends over. And we don't normally do daytime raids for obvious reasons. We
Yeah.
work at night. The advantage of working at night is all the advantages are in our corner. but we didn't want just him. We wanted the associates that were going to be there that day. And it was just too juicy of a target for us not to go hit. So we all load up on this Chinook, and it's I'm towards the front of the Chinook, which means when the Chinook lands, I'm gonna be one of the last guys off the Chinook.
Yeah.
So I wasn't real thrilled about that. Even on my first mission, I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be out in front. Yeah, I wanted to have a front row seat of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I and and you'll get this. I studied the overhead imagery. I studied the overhead imagery. I knew exactly where we were supposed to land. I knew where we were supposed to go, or I thought. And as this bird's coming in, again, I've never been on a Chinook. I've never been on a real world target, but I felt like this Chinook was coming in really fast. And I kept telling myself, well, he's going to, I guess this is just how fast they come in combat. And as it gets lower and lower and lower and lower, I'm like, there's no way this is right. And I yell at the top of my lungs, hold on. And they have those little cargo nets, there by the window.
Yeah.
And the only guy that could hear me, because you know how loud a Chinook is,
Yeah.
the only guy that could hear me was the guy in front of me, and he holds on, and everybody else falls. We hit so hard, everybody on the helicopter falls to the ground. And so this is my opportunity, and I literally run over everybody and come out the Chinook, and now I'm first. And I was telling you about the overhead imagery. The problem is when you're a new guy, overhead imagery and what's on the ground do not seem to line up. Like, you can study it all you want, a 2D picture from the air, but when you're on the ground, nothing now makes sense anymore. You get better at it, but at first it's very hard to connect those two. And so now I'm the very first one off, and I don't know where I'm going. I make a left. Luckily I picked out what I thought was the right building. Wasn't even exactly sure of it. The whole village erupts on us. There's literally machine gun fire everywhere. They're calling it Apache helicopter strikes. An Apache makes a gun run basically towards us with the target building in the middle of us. A missile goes over the building and lands right in between me and the guy that I yelled to hang on. We jump out of the way. There's dirt all on us. And it's absolute chaos. And I loved it. It was exactly what I thought combat was.
That's it. You're in. You're in.
Yeah. And really, you really only have, as from talking to many people over the years, you only have two reactions to combat. Be careful what you ask for. What have I got myself into? Or people immediately love it. And like, this is my new drug. This is what I was born to do. As cliche
That's
as
what
that
I want to do.
sounds,
This is my thing. Yeah.
this is my calling. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get up. Long story short, we assault that compound. We got to do some close quarter CQB on guys in that compound on my very first mission, killing people at a very close distance. They have us stay in the compound that night because they want us to do a key leader engagement in the village the next day. AC-130 hangs out overhead all night long, killing people all night long that were trying to sneak up to us and attack us.
Yeah.
It was a great mission, and I thought that's what combat was every mission. It would be several more missions before I got another mission like that.
Yeah, I mean that's but for a first taster, that sounds pretty decent. Like, do you know what I mean?
It couldn't have been a better first mission, to be honest with you.
So that tour, you did about 13 tours in the end, didn't you? Of Afghan, Iraq, and Syria. How far into it was it before you actually went Delta Force?
I was four. I was 4 deployments in before I went to the Delta Force.
Okay.
I was on a Iraq tour, and to be honest, I wasn't even the best guy on my special forces team. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think I was any slouch, but I didn't think I was the best guy on my team. But I had gone to dive school. I had gone to sniper school. I was a first time go, and everything I did in special forces, I just hadn't found anything that was, I don't know a better way to describe it, anything that was bigger than me. I was looking for a challenge. I was
Yeah.
looking to see how far I could go. I was still continuing to say to myself, I don't want to be 70 years old, look back on this life and go, man, I wish I'd have done that. So I was going to do everything in my power, within my reach, that I could do until something told me, no, this is where you stop. So even though I didn't think I was even the best guy on my team, in fact, I know I wasn't the best guy on my team. I put in my packet. I went to Delta Force selection. I actually didn't make it the first time,
Okay.
but I'd gotten very, very deep into the selection process, and they invite very few people back. Um, so I got a second opportunity at it. But even though it seems like, well, you found your limit, it was one of the, I don't know if you've ever failed at something and then knew that you shouldn't have. So
Yeah.
it'd have been one thing if it crushed me and I was like, well, that's my limit. Check that box. But
But
even though I didn't make
you
it,
knew you had it in you.
that's right. I got so far into it, I knew that it was not bigger than me, and I just needed to come back a little bit stronger, a little bit more focused, and it was well within my reach. And that's exactly what I did. I came back the very next class. To be honest with you, I kicked the course in the ass, and
How long's the
yeah,
Delta course? How long's the Delta Force course?
it's about the same. It's about the same length as the Special Forces course.
Okay.
But there's a lot more individual events. Almost everything's individual. So
Okay.
and I actually appreciate that a lot more, because when you do team events and special forces selection, you may have a weak link that you have to deal with that brings the whole team down. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't want to depend on anyone else. Just make it about me, whether I'm good enough or not. Only my training, only my decisions matter. And if I make it, it's all on me. If I don't make it, it's all on me. So I really appreciate and enjoy that solo selection a lot more.
So all the guys who were on Delta Force selection, have they all come from similar places like the Green Berets and that, all seen bags of action and all that sort of stuff?
And during that time, the amount of experience at that selection class was just unlike any other time, in unit history. Um, Most guys there are either Green Berets or Rangers.
Yeah.
But we also, it's a joint unit. We also have Marine Raiders, and we have
Yeah.
Navy SEALs as well come out to our selection. So anyone can come out to our selection, and everyone does,
So
and a
there's
lot of
a
them, and
proper band of people that have done a lot of
it,
stuff.
it is. So as I say, a lot of people come try out for our selection, and most of them go back to their units.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a similar story to SAS selection, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yes, yes. I don't want to go much further without saying almost everything we do is modeled after the SAS. In 1977, I don't know if you're familiar with Charles Beckwith's story, but he went as a Green Beret in the 70s. He went to go and did an exchange program with the SAS, and he came back. He was like, "Hey, there's this thing called terrorism, and we need to focus on just terrorism." And they're like, "Yeah, we got terrorism. The Green Berets do terrorism or counterterrorism." And he's like, yeah, it's one of the things they do, but to do it right, you have to focus on it. And there's this SAS unit over in England, and they do it right. He eventually, that's a great book. Someone should read it. That's a whole nother story I could go into. But in the day, after a lot of fighting, they allow him to start the Delta Force, and how we're structured, how we train, how we select. Almost it's almost a mirror of the SES, because
Yeah.
the SES is so good. There was no reason to do anything different. Just
No, if it's not
just
broken,
do what
don't
they
fix
do.
it. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
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 Um, it was so it's very cool working with those guys. I've told this story before, and because I don't think people really understand how close the relationship Delta and SAS have. Um, if I was in Syria, I was a Green Beret, before I went to the Delta Force. So if I was in
Yeah.
Syria and a Green Beret came and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, just want to come hang out with some Americans. Is this the Delta Force compound? You mind if I come in and say hi?" I'd say, "Go to selection," and I'd shut the door in his face. And that's just how
Yeah.
it is. You
Yeah.
don't that's that that you have to earn, that right to be in a tier 1 unit. It's
Yeah.
not just something you um but let's switch that story for a second. Give a guy a British an accent, and knock on the door and say, "Hey, I'm with the 2-2, mate. Mind if I come in?" I'd bring him in there in a heartbeat.
Mm.
I'd say, "Absolutely. What do you want to drink? What do you want to eat? Do you want to stay here with us?" There's nothing I wouldn't give that guy, and they'd do
Yeah.
the same exact thing for me.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's
got you.
just it's an amazing relationship that we have with those
Yeah.
guys, and not one guy has ever let their unit down as far as how they represent their unit. Every
Yeah.
guy is a stellar dude, and in fact, I was just hanging out with one at Shot Show in Las Vegas. Didn't Never knew him, but we had some of the same friends in the unit and the SAS, and we sat there and hung out and talked for hours like old friends.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. Yeah, yeah, awesome. So from Delta selection, you obviously would probably have been deployed straight away, I would have thought, at the time that you did it. You would have been straight out the door into another
Uh,
war zone.
um, I won't get into details, but the first thing I did was train up for a real world mission where we were going to halo into a foreign country that wasn't a combat zone, and do a mission. And that was a very cool way to enter, you know, that life. Was, hey, this is what's going on. You just graduated OTC, can't talk to any of your teammates about it. This is, it's on a need to know basis. This is what we're training up for. And we started traveling, trying to find places to mimic that terrain and train up for a mission. Um, and then right after that, we go to we blow out, we come back and literally repack our bags and go to Afghanistan. In fact, we were late getting to Afghanistan because that mission took a little longer. Um, the guys in Afghanistan had to stay later, waiting for us to come back and repack our bags so we could go to Afghanistan. So it was a wild ride, right out the gates, and it was what I expected. Everything about the unit was what I expected. The the How hard it was to get in, the challenge
Yeah.
of not just selection but OTC, the standards, the professionalism of the unit. People think of the unit as a bunch of cowboys, and they have no idea how professional an
No, I don't think
organization
people
it
understand
is.
it. I don't think anybody who hasn't been there will understand what tier one is all about, really. Do you know what I mean? You can watch as many computer games, you can even stack up in the rest of the wider army, but you still won't understand fully, I don't think, unless you go there as a member.
Absolutely. Um, it's raised the bar in my life for everything I do, including now that I run two companies, a coffee company and a cigar company. It's impacted me as a person, and it will the rest of my life. Like I said, people just don't understand the level of commitment and professionalism, the standards, and when you see it happen at that level and finally understand, that's that's why things have to be difficult, because things won't get done at a high level any other way.
No. So, have you got any operations that you can talk about that stand out from the others for any particular reason? You know, anyone particularly harder? Were you ever outnumbered massively? Have you got anything, any stories you can tell me about,
I didn't
missions that you went on?
I didn't particularly enjoy getting shot. That was that
Okay,
that
where
was
did you get shot?
that wasn't that wasn't part of the plan that night. But at the end of the day, the enemy gets to vote. Um, we were in Afghanistan. This is several trips into it, uh, and honestly, it was a little, of course, it was a little bit of bad luck as it always is, and it was also a little bit of, I don't know. This is my seventh, eighth deployment, and I always come out on top. And so I was just, my tactics were just getting more aggressive and more aggressive. I kind of quit respecting combat, if you will,
Right.
um, because there was nothing in my past to tell me different, that I couldn't get away with it. And in hindsight, it probably should have happened sooner. But again, sometimes there's a lot of luck in combat too.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. No, I get
your
that.
luck will run out eventually. So yeah, we went on a short notice mission, a high value target that had come in from Pakistan, and we went to hit we went to hit it. My job that night was, uh, we call it squirter control, but people who run away from the objective while the helicopters are coming in, they go hide other places, and it was my job to go see who those people were and say hi to them. So it was me, two other Americans, some Afghans with us, and a dog. And so the assault force hit the main objective. The assault force was hitting a follow-on objective, um, and we hadn't had jackpot yet. We don't have the guy. And so for me, as a score to control element, it puts, I want to say pressure, but kind of, it puts a lot of pressure on me to go, hey, if he's not in one of these buildings, he's probably out here hiding.
Yeah, he could have been one of
Uh,
the runners, yeah.
that's right. Yeah, he's one of the runners, and there's probably three different pockets. So we show up to the first pocket, we kill those guys. We're looking through all their identifications, and no jackpot here either. I call it up. This is actually as they're leaving the first compound to go to the second. And so when I go to the second group of of people hiding out, it's 50-50. He's probably either here, or he's on the follow-on target. Um, we kill all those guys. We're looking through uh, their their IDs and pockets, and he's not in that one either. So now there's a third pocket we have to go investigate, and they're almost done clearing the follow-on target, and they haven't had jackpot yet. So in my mind, it's a very good assumption. According to the numbers, that third pocket is a very important group of people, and he's probably there. And so as we're walking to those guys, at some point we hear sector secure. Um, we know they're done clearing. I'm still walking towards that pocket, really hoping, not hoping, that's not true. I'm hoping that I'm going to get jackpot, just to be selfish with it, but hoping that they don't say jackpot, and they never do. And so I know if he's here that night, he's in this final group. If he's
Yeah.
here, that's where he's at. Um, so that definitely drove me to do some things that I may not have normally done, just out of the desire to get this guy, and it really kind of feels like it's on your shoulders. And if you don't clear this pocket, then he gets to live another night. Um, we get there and things just start going wrong. Radios just stop working. We're in a really deep part of this valley, and we don't have communications with higher anymore. So we're kind of on an island, if you will, comma wise.
Yeah.
Um, it starts to rain. It starts to rain real heavy. Um, and now the nods are fogging up. It was almost a zero loom night as it was, so it was very hard to see. And now you have rain and fog, and we're trying to get the dogs to find out exact. We know generally the area they're at. We're trying to get the dog uh, to help us isolate where they are, but the dog is not doing as good as a job as it normally does, because the rain and the wind is really affecting the dog's ability to smell these guys out. So really, at some point, we we run into them, looking for them. We run into them, and when we normally have, using technology and using the dog, we usually have a lot of things uh, in our corner, and better night vision, but with everything just against us that night, we end up more or less running into them. And I was point man, and we ran into a larger force than we were, and I was as the point man, I was able to kill 3 or 4 right off the bat, and then we started throwing grenades. Uh, the the fourth or fifth guy shoots me back when I shoot him. We it, the AK-47 round went through my arm, basically blows it, or my arm is dangling, hanging on by a limb. The When we throw a grenade at them, well, our commo guy actually goes up and throws a grenade to try to get him off of our back because we're very close at this point. He sees me go down and he throws a grenade to try to buy some time to separate these two forces that are almost intermingled with each other. Um, when he throws a grenade at them, this has happened several times during that same trip. But usually when we introduce a grenade, we get one back.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is we train at a high level and we use everything in our arsenal. They've been carrying the same grenade since probably fighting the Russians, and they forget they have a grenade. But if you throw a grenade first, you'll remind them, "Oh yeah, I got one of those too," and they'll throw one back. Uh, and most people don't know this because it's not the movies. In an open air environment, grenades just don't kill people. It's not the big explosion, people jumping in the air. Um, it it throws some shrapnel out, and it. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to be hit by a grenade because here in a couple seconds he throws that grenade. A couple seconds later, they throw one back. It lands right by my face, and it lands in a mud puddle. And if it hadn't landed in a mud puddle, that's what saved my life that night. It ends up, you know, throwing shrapnel in my face and blowing my helmet off and blowing my nods off. But thankfully, just as you have bad luck, you have good luck too.
Yeah.
That grenade landing in a puddle saved my life. We eventually uh, got killed everyone and came out on top of that. I wasn't as much as a help at the end of that I was at the beginning.
Was
Getting
Jackpot
shot.
there? Was Jackpot there?
Jackpot was there. Yep. And
Oh,
so
there you go. So you can almost deem it worth it then.
that's worth it. Worth it to me. I know that
Yeah.
sounds crazy, but
Yeah.
worth it to me. So
Yeah.
it
No, I
was
get that. I totally get that.
that started a whole nother problem. Another guy in our patrol got shot as well. My nods no longer work anymore. Um, I have a very bad gunshot wound in my arm that almost cost me my arm. But they talked about cutting it off several times. Um, I have grenade shrapnel all on my right side, and you can tourniquet the arm, but you can't tourniquet all the shrapnel on your body. And
No, you're right.
we're trying our best to get back to the main element. Um, the craziest thing, at least to me that night, is I almost bleed out trying to get back to the element, and we were also pressing hard. We were pressing hard because we were we were getting bits and pieces uh, of the chatter from the helos. And the helos were basically saying, "Hey, you guys either need to hurry up so that we can land and get you, or if you're going to be a while, we have to go back and refuel and come back, and it'll be an hour. So basically, either get done in a hurry or take your time, and we have to leave." So that was also pressing us to go a little faster than we had wanted to, because we were starting to get in various firefights. People were starting to converge on our location, so we didn't want them to go back to refuel. Well, they find out, and they hear some of the chatters. We're trying to talk to them and tell them, "Hey, we have 2 guys hit. We're trying to make it to you." And again, commo just turns to crap that night. But the helos heard that, and they didn't know how bad I was injured, but they didn't want to take a chance on it. So and they knew if they flew back to Bagram to refuel that they weren't going to be back in an hour. Um, and we call it the golden hour. When someone's hurt,
Yeah.
they need to be in, in surgery, into a higher medical care within an hour. Um, they just landed the helos. They just put $50 million helicopters in the middle of bad guy country, on in the middle of an opium field, and just sat there. It's like, you know what? Come protect us. We're gonna sit it down right here because we want to be here when the boys, when the boys get back. It was. I don't think people understand what an absolute gutsy call that was. They
Mate,
didn't
the
ask for.
bravery of some of these pilots is
Oh,
absolutely second to none, isn't it?
absolutely. That could have turned. I mean, really, it could have turned in. It sounds dramatic, but it's not. It could have turned into a whole Black Hawk Down. You
Yeah,
can't.
yeah,
You can't,
in a heartbeat
it
as well. In a
it's
heartbeat.
it's a massive signature of both, of a sound and visual of a helicopter. Nothing will bring the hounds in chomping at the bits to go overwhelm this helicopter. And that they
Yeah,
sat it down, they put out security, we pushed some guys over there and we protected it, all for the sake that they knew when we got there we needed to get on a helicopter and leave immediately. And it was, I honestly, I'm here today because of what those guys did.
yeah. No, they're amazing pilots. They're the same. The Brit pilots are exactly the same. I was involved in that hostage rescue in Sierra Leone, and the lead helicopter in particular hovered over an enemy building while guys were roping out of it. Like, do you know what I mean? Didn't care. Didn't care. He was getting the guys out, and he was coming back to get them at the end. Do you know what I mean? It's bravery on the next level, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And at the end of the day, at least I get to defend myself. Yeah, yeah. I got a gun. Put me on the ground, and and my fate's in my hands.
Yeah,
Those helicopter pilots, yeah, they're just a big target, and there's
yeah. They are a
nothing
big
they can
target.
do,
A big, big target.
except
So
calm their
you get back
nerves
in off.
and do it.
So you get back in off this one. You've done your arming now. How long does it take for your arm to repair?
It. I think 7 surgeries later, I had a big plate put in it. I had to get a bone marrow, not bone marrow. I'm sorry, a bone transfusion to try to put more bone into my arm because they're trying to get it to come back. It was a debacle. Well, there's two answers to that. How long did it take me to get back, or how long did it take me to fully recover? Um,
Well, we'll have
so
them both. How long did it take you to get back, and how long did it take you to fully recover?
we were the team was there for in country for about another 3 months, and I tried to sneak on a bird uh, right before they got home, so I could try to go on 1 or 2 missions before they came back. I had uh, they found out that I had manifested myself on a bird to Afghanistan, and my care provider at the unit was like, "No, just absolutely not. You are not going back." Um, I fought her about that. I said, your job is to help me recover, but you don't get a say on me operationally." And she says, okay. So she went to the commander, and the commander does get a say. The commander says, Brent, you get on that bird, and you won't have a job here. And as brave as I thought I was going back to Afghanistan early, still hurt. It wasn't worth my job. So I decided, well, I guess I'll stay and recover. Um, in total, it probably took me, well, it took me a year to fully recover because I couldn't get on
Right.
jump status again until my arm was fully recovered. So it probably took me close to a year.
Wow. Okay.
But I tried to sneak into combat just a couple months later.
They must have got wise to you.
they got they got wise to me. Hey, I was so mad at her for she told on me is what she did.
She snitched on you.
She snitched on me,
She
and I was
grassed
so
you
mad
up.
at her. And I tell you what, there are several times. There are more stories than that. I'll tell a quick one. I came home from Afghanistan. My wife was having twin babies. I came home, saw the birth of my twin little girls, and and again, I manifested myself on a flight. Said, and I called my boss, my team leader at the time. I said, I'll babies are healthy, mommy's healthy, I'm coming back. He goes, awesome. When you want to come back? He goes, I was like, I'll be there in 3 days. He goes, she just had the babies like 2 days ago. I said, I know, and they're fine. I've kissed them both. And my troop sergeant major, of course, found out I was coming back and said, Brent, you're going to stay there with mom. And you're absolutely, I'm giving you a direct order. You're not to come back here. You're going to stay home with mom. Both of those decisions to, make me stay there for my wife and kids, to make me not let me come back early. Both the absolute best decisions. But that's the type of guys you have there. You have guys that you have to pull back because they will run themselves into the ground willingly for for their teammates, for the mission, and it's the coolest. Nowhere else will you find guys like that, honestly, at least at that level and that many of them. I'm sure you'll find a guy like that here and there at other units. But you're talking about a unit just full of guys like
it's full
this.
of them. Everyone's the same. Everyone wants it all the time.
Yeah, and it's an absolute amazing experience.
So, after a number of years, you finally leave. You do 20 years in all. Tell us about the Purple Heart, because you won a Purple Heart as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and so the Purple Heart came the night I got shot, and then hit by a grenade. So that was my Purple Heart.
Okay, obviously you led the mission that captured Mr. Jackpot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and got yourself bashed up a bit doing it. So.
I did.
I think you earned the Purple Heart, mate. I'll give you one. That's for sure.
It was bittersweet.
How was Syria compared with Iraq and Afghanistan? So I went to Syria and made a documentary. I never fought there, but I did go on the front line and made a documentary for Sky News. But yeah, I saw some slightly different stuff going on there. How did you find Syria?
Yeah, it's weird because between Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, they're all so different, but they're all very much the same as well. Yeah. And so there's a lot of similarities that of the experience that you had that carry over to Syria. But ISIS was unlike the Taliban and Al Qaeda. Yeah, and I'm not saying those Al Qaeda and Taliban weren't evil people, because they absolutely were, and it's easy to find information backing that statement up. But ISIS was just pure evil. They were just a different type of evil, and I thoroughly enjoyed killing them. I don't know how else to say it. Nothing drove me more than to wake up early, push a little harder, go ensure my sniper weapon was always ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, those are things, as a professional, I do anyway, but now you have a person like that, and now it's personal, and it's really,
you want to give them all the red carpet. You want to give them all the maximum opportunity, the best opportunity they can to die for their cause. That's what you want to give them.
I hated them. I really did.
Yeah.
I hated them unlike anyone else. And so I really enjoyed operating in Syria.
Yeah.
The amount of IEDs in Syria were unlike anything else. I was in the Iraq during Surge. I've dealt with IEDs before. Nothing compared to, I don't know where they got them all from. Nothing compares to how often and how effective ISIS was at using IEDs. They'd put them in walls. And again, that's not a new technique, but there's not a wall that is safe. It could be in any wall. It could be under a crush wire under any carpet. They were just everywhere.
I mean, with that in mind, at least you know where you stand. You can absolutely trust absolutely nothing, can you, ever?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just not I don't live in fear. I'm not a person that, especially in combat, that what ifs everything, goes, oh, that could be as, could be there. That's just not me. But you fight against Syria and push ISIS out of a village as you push them back to Raqqa, and you can't help but live that way. It was that it was that ridiculous, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, very, very. It was for me. You know, I saw a migration of civilians who'd been absolutely tortured, butchered, raped. You name it, they'd had everything done to them. You had, you know, in some of these places, some of the punishment stuff that was going on. I think for me, ISIS were exactly what you said, a completely honking, horrible, disgusting, despicable, vile group of people.
Yeah, and we got to do a. I was not to go into too much detail about it, but talking generalities. We basically kind of called it a banker's war at times, where kind of it was also unlike anywhere else because you had a good guy, you had a line, a flot, a forward line of trace, we called it, and the good guys were on one side, the bad guys were on the other side. The delineation of war was very clear, and we never had that in Iraq, and we never had that in Afghanistan.
No.
So that was great. But basically, there's a lot of mortars being dropped. There's a lot of artillery being dropped. A lot of sniper fire. A lot of
Well, drones were coming into play then as well, weren't they? I mean,
drone. Oh
they
man,
were
absolutely.
they were sending drones. They were wiring up Humvees and sending them into
That's
the
right.
walls and that and all sorts of stuff.
V bids. Oh man,
Yeah.
the amount of V bids that they would wire, but it all happened really during the daylight hours. And when nighttime hit, neither side, the Kurds or ISIS, had night vision, and they basically went back to their fires and commenced the next day.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty
So,
crazy place, isn't it?
so I was tasked to basically start a small raid force that would harass them at night, to keep them up at night, to force them to basically be prepared to fight day and night, and
Mm.
crush their spirits, and never let them feel like they're safe. And so that was a very cool operation to be a part of as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that probably. I mean, damaging morale on anybody is an absolute great weapon if you can do it.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. It's you can't live like a hunted man 24 hours a day. You have to be able to shut it off. You will fade out quickly, and so to be able to hunt those guys at night, harass them at night, make them feel on edge 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
We were getting the results of what they were talking about. They hated it. They absolutely hated it. While our side, the Kurds, were sleeping like babies at night, and that's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brilliant.
And obviously it
So,
worked out for us. I won't get into the numbers, but I will tell you this: it will absolutely it would astonish you the amount of ground force America sent to go deal with ISIS.
yeah.
Uh, and it was a lot of the Kurds. We'll just say it, call it a few Americans, and that force, um, and a few Brits, and that force conquered ISIS, drove them all the way back to Raqqa,
Mm.
and then completely demolished them when they were there at Raqqa with their last stand. And then that same force, when the war was over, hunted ISIS, who said, "Hey, my bad. I'm just gonna put down my weapon, and go back to living a normal life. Sorry about that ISIS thing." We didn't forget that. Neither did the Kurds, and we went and rounded as many of them up as we could, even after Raqqa fell. And that was some of my best work, to be honest with you. That
Yeah.
we're not going to forget what you did. You can't just say sorry. I was on the wrong side of that one, and go back to living a
Yeah, you
normal
you
life.
made your decision. You made your bed. You know,
Yeah,
you've absolutely made your bed, and now things have come on top. You got to realize they are on top, and they're going to keep on top and all.
that's right. So that was it was just very rewarding work. I loved it, and honestly, it's what helped me retire.
Okay.
At, at After Afghanistan, multiple trips to Afghanistan, multiple trips to Iraq. Now I'm in multiple trips to Syria. Um, I just felt complete. I was like, I've
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's a man alive couldn't say you didn't do your bit. Do you know what I mean?
well, hey, as you know, at the end of the day, you'll always want to get on a helicopter one more time. That it's a drug you get addicted to that you never want to that you're never fully okay with not being a part of your life.
Yeah.
Um, but I was, I was
So you made the plunge, you
content.
came out into Civvy Street, and how did you find being a civilian? How did you find getting out? You know, 'cause it's quite difficult over here in the UK. Do you know what I mean? But I think your aftercare system for veterans and all that sort of stuff, I think you probably got it a little bit better in the States than what we have it over here.
We absolutely do. I mean, of course, I can't speak for the UK, but
Yeah.
um, we do have it good. We have so many. If you want me to be blatantly honest with you, we probably have too many programs, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. We have so many programs. There are guys that never saw combat, and it's too easy for them to milk the system. There are
Yeah.
guys
No,
claiming,
I do get that. I 100% get where you're coming from with that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not that. Um, I don't have PTSD. I sleep like a baby at night.
You
But
seem quite happy about it, in fact.
right, yeah. I think about the destruction of war, and it puts a small smile on my face while I sleep. But I also know that's not. I'm not everyone, and I do believe some people have a hard time coping with it,
Yeah.
which is why when there are people that are stealing resources away who just want extra money or just want to go on a hunting trip or just want that, I call them look at me dogs, this little dog that has a vest on, um, that those resources are finite. And if everyone says they have it, then we don't have the resources to give to the people that really have a problem in
Yeah, that's
life.
right.
And
Yeah,
so
no, people. You're right. People are jumping on the bandwagon that shouldn't
uh,
probably be
abs-
prioritised. With some
uh,
people that should definitely be prioritised.
and
It's a
people won't say it. I don't have a problem saying it. A lot of times it's people that went to war. They didn't do anything. They didn't do what they wanted to do. They weren't the person
yeah.
they wanted to be. And when they get out, it's either for them to say, "Oh, I can't talk about it. We just had some really bad days over there." Well, if you don't want to talk about it, quit wearing veteran shirts and hats and stickers all over your truck saying, bragging about how you served. And when people ask you about your service, say, "Oh, I can't talk about it." Well, you don't want to talk about it because you really don't have much to say. You just want the attention. And I'm going to get some
Yeah, that's
flack for that. I'm going to get some flack for
I
that. But every veteran knows what I'm talking about.
yeah. There's not many people to be honest. There's not many people who stand there and say that. Do you know what I mean? And that's very that's a noble thing to do in my eyes. To be honest.
Well, thank you. It won't feel so noble when the hate mail starts coming in.
We'll see.
That's okay.
We'll just delete it. You get hated no matter what you do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So who
that's
cares?
right. That's okay. You feel like you need to reach out to me and tell me what how
Yeah.
insensitive I am.
But
Go ahead.
you'll still watch everything I do. I can tell you. Do you know what I mean?
I can take it. I've had worse than angry emails.
Yeah. Ooh. So the coffee stuff and the cigar stuff. Just briefly, tell me about that, so we can give you a bit of light on that, and we can try and see what you're up to with that stuff.
So it's actually a good segue because people do have a hard time transitioning, and I
Yeah.
can tell you what really the hardest part about transitioning is. To me, I would say it's not necessarily the rigors of war and and all the nasty memories. It's feeling that you were important and that you had a purpose in life, and now you don't.
Yeah.
You lose the camaraderie. You lose
Yeah,
the purpose in
it's like a
life.
pro sports player. It's like a pro
That,
sports player who plays football
abs,
all his life. The crowd adore him, and
that's
now he's
right.
a schmo, and he's picking up his hot dogs himself and all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? And
Right.
life is not what it was. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I started training SWAT teams and got into police training, um, and most of the time for free because they don't have a very good budget. But as
Yeah,
soon as you start dealing with them, you start realizing the amazing people that are doing that job, the lack of resources that they have, and and that there's a need to be filled there. And so to me, I found my purpose. I said, these, and then if my family gets in trouble tonight, the Delta Force isn't getting on little birds and coming to save my family. Local cops are coming to save my family. If there's if there's a medical emergency, the Delta Force medic isn't coming to my house. There's a firefighter or an EMT paramedic that's coming to my house for a medical emergency. And so that's where I've chosen to, put my resources and time into investment into first responders. So I started First Responder Coffee Company, and then 6 months later, I started First Responder Cigar Company. And portions of every sale go back to first responders. Last year, we started in November 2022, so really we're about a little over a year old. Last year, we raised over $20,000, and getting to give checks to these families of police officers who were shot, or we had a paramedic who was stabbed in the back of her ambulance trying to render aid to
Yeah.
someone hopped up on drugs and wants to wake up and stab her. To be able to write letters, give coffee, give money to these people, and say, "Hey, your service isn't in vain. People haven't forgot about you. People absolutely love and respect what you do," and to be a part of that, it 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 gives me a reason to wake up and work hard again.
No, and rightly so. Listen, that's what we try to do here with Force Radio is create a first responder community which bonds together. Do you know what I mean? And appreciates the hard work that everybody does. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a massive movement, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And like you say, it's not just the guys on the little birds dangling off ropes and doing
Right.
all the good stuff. It's the people that turn up when you need them most. Do you know what I mean?
And it I don't want to downplay it. Of course, what happened the last, basically 20 years in the military was amazing times and deserved a lot of support. And first responders always, here in America, always supported the military in a massive way. Uh, but those times of war have come to an end, and but the job first responders that have done during those war times, it really kind of got overshadowed by the military.
Yeah,
They're still doing it, and I'm
they're
not.
still there. They still turn up on the
Most
worst
of
day of your
special
life.
operations isn't going on objectives anymore. But guess what? SWAT teams are going on hits across America every night across this
Yeah,
country. So their war, if you want to call it, just bear with me with that term, never ends. And so I really feel like it's a good opportunity for the military to now give back to the first responders and say, "Hey, thanks for the
yeah.
support for the last 20 years. We support you too."
Yeah, no, superb. Listen, Brent, I'm gonna have to end this now. But listen, thanks very much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you. I appreciate what you've done. You've got a great story. I'd love you to keep in touch with our station. I'd love to meet you over here at some stage, and I will take you around London. We'd have a go and have a couple of beers or whatever it is you like to do. Do you know what I mean? So,
Uh,
look,
I,
hopefully you'll stay in touch.
a couple beers and a cigar to be just right. I'll take you up on that.
There you go. It's all right. Then. Well, next time you're in London, you're on. All right, buddy.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.